Tolula. Tolula is a pretty cat, although she doesn't like people telling her this. She thinks of herself more as a regal cat, especially as she rules the house she lives in. Her fur is a tortoiseshell colour and very soft and shiny. She has beautiful yellow eyes and a cute little button nose. She begins every morning by grooming herself. This is very important as Tolula likes to look her best for visitors when they come to see her. Tolula lives with 3 little girls and their parents in a warm and cosy house, and she has them all wrapped around her tiny paws. One thing Tolula really doesn't like is to be cuddled, but she does like to be stroked. No matter who she sits down next to, they know she wants to be stroked immediately. Without hesitation they do this and only stop when Tolula gets up and walks away. The door in Tolula's house does not have a cat flap set into it like other cats have in their houses. I don't even think she knows what a cat flap is. Tolula is a house cat, a stay indoors kind of cat, and she is more than happy with this. She has never been outside and has never even tried to go outside because everything she wants is inside her house. Her food is given to her by a robot who delivers it at the same time every day, and the robot is always on time. Tolula has tried to outsmart the robot on many occasions by sitting beside it at random times throughout the day and pawing at it. But the robot completely ignores her. It sticks to its duties and never fails to deliver the same exact amount of food at 5 every afternoon. Tolula's favourite pastime is to sit on her very tall cat perch, which has been carefully positioned near the big front window of her house. She loves to sit here because she can see everything that goes on outside. She can see the garden, the long road in front of the house, and the cars driving up her driveway just before they disappear into the garage, which is set underneath the main part of the house. Tolula loves sitting on her cat perch, watching her girls playing on the lawn, and also when they ride their bikes up and down the quiet road in front of the house. Sometimes they will cycle too far up the road and Tolula loses sight of them. This causes her to panic slightly, and she will wave her tail from side to side, watching intently until they come back into view. On more than one occasion, Tolula has longed to be outside with her girls, especially when she hears them laughing and can see they are having so much fun. But Tolula is a house cat and knows better than to try and go near the main door of the house. When Tolula wants peace and quiet, she goes down the stairs into the basement. Down here there is a very large room where the girls play and their daddy watches a giant television. On the other side of this room is a smaller room. This is the laundry room and is always nice and warm. This is Tolula's favourite room in the house, and she loves to curl up and sleep on top of anything soft that is lying around in here. Late one afternoon, just after Tolula had eaten her food delivered by her robot, she decided to take a nap. The family were busy working on something called homework at the dining room table, and she never liked to disturb them during this time. Quietly, Tolula went down the stairs into the basement and walked across the playroom towards the laundry room. She noticed it didn't feel as warm down here as it usually did. In fact, it felt a little chilly. Tolula looked around and saw that the door leading into the garage was slightly ajar, which was very unusual as it was always tightly shut. Feeling curious, she squeezed through the gap and went into the garage. It felt even colder in here, and then Tolula realised why. The big garage door was wide open and she could see everything outside. Tolula walked towards the open garage door and looked outside. She thought about going into the garden, but hesitated as she had never been outside of the house before. But the girls always looked like they were having fun out there, so maybe it wasn't that bad. It was just starting to get a little dark, and Tolula was still wondering what to do when a little mouse ran past her and ran out into the garden. Without thinking, Tolula ran outside after the mouse. The mouse ran as fast as he could, with Tolula chasing close behind him. The mouse ran up the road, took a left turn across some gardens, down another road, behind some shops, made a right turn out into the street, and finally turned into a churchyard. The mouse ran up the path to the church and then disappeared through a hole in the big wooden church door. Tolula was not used to running, and running this far nearly took her breath away. Arriving at the church, she skidded to a halt just in time to see the mouse's tail disappear through the hole in the door. Puffing slightly, Tolula wondered how she could get inside the church. After all, she hadn't run all this way just for fun. The hole the mouse had gone through was tiny, so that wasn't an option, as Tolula was far too big to fit through there. The big wooden church door was firmly closed, and the big round door handle was a long way from the ground. Even if Tolula could jump that high, she would not be able to turn it. Tolula looked around and decided to forget about the mouse and go back home. She had run a long way, and that nap seemed even more appealing now. She walked down the path, through the churchyard and into the street. Then she stopped. Which way was home? She had no idea where she was. She had no idea which way she had come from. This was the first time Tolula had ever been outside of her house, and the mouse had led her all over the place. What was she going to do? It was getting quite dark now, and Tolula felt a little scared. What if she never finds her way home? That would mean she would never see her 3 girls ever again. And who would the robot feed every day? Tolula decided to sit down and try to remember which way the mouse had led her. But no matter how hard she tried to think about this, it was all a blur. Her focus had been on catching the mouse, not on the direction she was running in. All of a sudden, Tolula heard a squeaking noise. She turned around and saw the mouse running down the path from the church. Tolula was too worried and upset to be bothered to chase the mouse again, so she just sat and continued trying to remember which way she had come from. The mouse ran past Tolula and immediately turned left and then ran up the street past the church. Tolula just sat and watched him. The mouse ran only a short way when he stopped, turned back, and appeared to be looking right at Tolula. Still, Tolula just sat and watched him. Then a strange thing happened. The mouse ran back down the street to where Tolula was sitting, stopped right in front of her for a few seconds, and then turned and ran back up the street in the same direction as he had just come from. Then he stopped and looked back at Tolula as if to say, "Come on, follow me." Tolula decided to do this because she didn't know where else to run. So she started running up to the mouse, and the mouse started running away from Tolula. On and on they ran, until eventually Tolula began to recognise her neighbourhood. Very soon the mouse had led her back to her garden, and there she saw her garage door. But it was closed. The big garage door was shut tight. Oh no! What was Tolula going to do now? Suddenly, Tolula heard loud voices, and it sounded like the voices were shouting her name. Looking up at the house in the direction the voices were coming from, Tolula could see her 3 girls looking out of the big front window where her cat perch was. The 3 of them were looking straight at her, jumping up and down and shouting her name. Tolula walked closer to the big window just as the girls' mummy opened the main door. She came running outside and picked Tolula up, cuddling her tightly. Tolula had never been so happy to have a cuddle, and she snuggled into the warm arms that squeezed her. Tolula was home, and she never wanted to go outside ever again. Her 3 girls were so happy to see her, and they all wanted to cuddle and stroke her at the same time. Tolula did not move away. She was really enjoying this. Suddenly, Tolula heard the robot preparing her food. She was sure she had eaten before her adventure, but she ran over to it and gobbled up the food. The girl's mummy had programmed the robot to give this special meal, as she was sure Tolula would be hungry after all that time out of the house. Later that evening, after the girls had each given her a final cuddle and were tucked up in bed, Tolula went down to the basement for a well-deserved sleep. As she got closer to the laundry room, she glanced over at the door leading into the garage and saw it was still a little ajar. Tolula turned her back on this and continued into the laundry room, where she found a warm and cosy spot to curl up in. She thought about her crazy adventure and decided staying indoors and being a house cat was an excellent way to live. She closed her eyes and was just starting to doze off when she heard a squeaking noise. Opening one eye, she saw the little mouse had curled up in a warm and cosy spot just opposite her. Tolula smiled at the mouse and gave a contented sigh as she closed her eye again. Just before she fell asleep, Tolula decided this little mouse was going to be a special friend, because without him she felt sure she would still be wandering around outside in the dark. The end.